Hey, what up world? It's your boy Ian. Welcome to Hacking the System, the show where I teach you how to make six figures in your 20s. Yeah, your 20s. Who said making six figures has to wait till you're old and grumpy? In today's show, we're going to talk about something that's about to blow up, and I mean blow up. We're here on the diamond field playing baseball. Well, not really, but today's show, I want to show you how you could possibly hit a home run in investing in something that's on the up and up. Today's show will cover Bitcoin, Ethereum, and cryptocurrencies and how they could possibly make you a millionaire. In your 20s? Let's get into it.
Hey, what up world? It's your boy the Made Man. Welcome to Hacking the System, the show where I teach you how to make six figures by any means necessary while you're still young. Create the lifestyle of your dreams and hustle to greatness.
All right, so in today's show we're talking about Bitcoin, Ethereum, altcoins, cryptocurrencies in general, and how they could possibly make you a millionaire. I know that may seem like an exaggeration because I'm definitely not a millionaire, but the potential is there, right? So if the potential is there, then if you're out there trying to chase the money like us, right, we gotta go break it down and show how we could possibly do it. So let's start things off with a story, right? There was this guy who was doing his thesis in graduate school on cryptography. So he got intrigued by Bitcoin and blockchains in general, right? For those who don't know, blockchain is a technology underlying Bitcoin that makes it work, right? It basically leverages cryptography. So he got really intrigued with this, and he just tossed some money on the side and bought some Bitcoin. He bought $27 worth of Bitcoin. That was some time back, right? Fast forward 3 years later, he completely forgot about his investment. He forgot about his $27 investment. So 3 years later, Bitcoin is basically in the news. It's blowing up, it's trending, it's peaking. It's like, yo, I bought some Bitcoin a while back. Let me check up on it. Right? So he goes to check his Bitcoin wallet to see how much money he has. And in 3 years, it went from being worth $27 to $886,000. Yeah, almost $1 million in 3 years. He's $27 because Bitcoin went from being worth pennies on the dollar to right now being worth over $1,200 for one Bitcoin. Right, so Bitcoin is blowing up, baby. Right, so don't miss this boat. If you missed it, I'll show you how we can definitely leverage it in other cryptocurrencies. All right, so why is there lots and lots of hype around Bitcoin, Ethereum, and cryptocurrencies in general? Well, Bitcoin was the best performing currency in 2016. Surpassed gold and any other value out there like dollar, yen, whatever, right? It was the best performing currency. Just think about that for a second. How many currencies do we have out there in the world? The world is humongous, right? But Bitcoin was the best performing currency in 2016. It went up 120% in 2016, basically meaning that it more than doubled the money if you had bought Bitcoin in 2016. Then on the other hand, Ethereum is blowing up as well, actually blowing up a lot more than Bitcoin itself. I got involved in this whole cryptocurrency game sometime around November, December last year in 2016. And I was like, you know what, this seems kind of trending because my friend told me about it. So I tossed some money at it. And I recall Ethereum at that point in time, around November, December, was only worth $10. Fast forward to February, March, Ethereum is at $40. So it's quadrupled in value in about 3 months, right? So my best trade to date, my best investment to date in terms of cryptocurrencies is actually Ethereum. I put in about $2,500 in it, and in about 3 months, in basically a month or so actually, because the last couple of months has been kind of stagnating, but in basically a month, I doubled my money from $2,500 to over $5,000, right? So all these currencies are trending because they're blowing up, they're getting attention. They aren't mainstream yet, so right now there's still definitely time to catch the gold rush, because this right here is a gold rush, baby. All right, so to start things off, we'll first talk about what is Bitcoin, what is Ethereum, and what are altcoins and cryptocurrencies in general. All right, what is Bitcoin? To keep things simple, Bitcoin is a decentralized digital currency, right? So similar to how we have cash, we have the dollar, what have you, right? We have different currencies, the dollar, the yen, right? Bitcoin is a digital currency. But what makes it different though is it's decentralized, There is no central authority. There is no bank. There is no government that controls it. It's peer-to-peer. So similar to how BitTorrent operates, right? If you ever download anything from BitTorrent to way back in the day with Napster, right? Napster and the whole time with the illegal pirating craze, right? Everything was peer-to-peer, right? Because of that, there is no central point of failure when it comes to Bitcoin, right? Imagine having different people across the world being able to talk with each other and send money without having to depend on a bank, on the government, right? There is no middleman. Everything is peer-to-peer. You're directly talking with the other person and making a transaction. This happens because of some technology called blockchain, which basically leverages cryptography, meaning that it makes it so that you can't really hack it per se, right? So nobody can really spy on it. It's very, very secure, right? So me and you can make a transaction without having to go to the bank. And because of that, there is no middleman, freeing us. Then on the other hand, we have a different currency and platform called Ethereum, right? This is kind of the second biggest currency or platform out there, right? Ethereum is a decentralized distributed computing platform. What does that mean? So think of that as basically using peer-to-peer virtual computing. That's kind of the best analogy I can think of it. So think of Ethereum as a platform that allows you to build applications, that allows you to build peer-to-peer applications. So think of building a supercomputer that is decentralized. There is no central computer. Everything is peer-to-peer. So imagine everybody around the world pulling their computer powers together to make one supercomputer, one platform that you can run different applications on. And these applications are called smart contracts. So what does that exactly mean? So with Ethereum, you can have not just currencies, right? Because the currency for Ethereum is called Ether, but you can have smart contracts for things such as trading coffee, for trading wheat, right? So anything of value between two parties and they want to transact with each other, they can do that on this platform called Ethereum. And one of those ways is Ether, which is the currency. All right, what are altcoins? For anything out there that's not Bitcoin, in terms of the cryptocurrency world, this is referred to as an altcoin, short for alternative coins. All right, so why do Bitcoin, Ethereum, and cryptocurrencies in general really matter? What makes them valuable? The first point is they're decentralized. I keep stressing that because it means that there is no central single point of failure. The government can't come out there and control it. There is no one central authority or body that controls it, meaning that everybody can do what they want whenever they want. It's kind of like the wild, wild west, right? So, which is both good and bad, right? Because good in the sense that countries out there that have oppression or different people that can seize their bank accounts don't really have to bother with that because Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general give them independence from that. Because there is no one single point of failure, nobody can shut it down. The government, for example, can't come and say, you know what, we don't like how you're transacting business, let's shut this down. Perfect example is Bitcoin back in the day, back in the heyday, got popular because people were using it on a platform called Silk Road, right? They could transact and buy illegal goods on this platform, which is basically the dark web, the dark net. They could buy illegal goods with it and not really leave any trace because the government couldn't track it. So that's how Bitcoin kind of got its initial growth. But the government came and shut down the dark web for Silk Road, but they couldn't shut down Bitcoin because Bitcoin has no central authority. It's peer-to-peer. So imagine kind of like BitTorrent, if you take down one computer, you can't shut down the entire network. This becomes important because you own Bitcoin. It's not owned by the bank, your country, the government, or a different authority. You own it. It is yours. As a result, nobody can seize it from you unless you lose your wallet, which we won't cover today. But so for example, back in, I think around 2013 or so, there was the whole economy, bailouts, countries were collapsing. And Cyprus was one of those countries. Cyprus, the government of Cyprus, as a way to bail out the country and try to reestablish or reboost the economy, they went out there and they wanted to seize assets in people's bank accounts. Just think about that for a second. The government wanted to go to people's bank accounts, take out their money, and redistribute that money out there as a way to revitalize the economy. So people got scared, man. They got really, really scared. And that's when Bitcoin began to grow. So they took money from their bank accounts because they knew the government could come and seize those assets. And they put that almost in a way kind of like as an offshore account. They used Bitcoin as a way to hide the money from the government or store their money. Not really hide it, but protect their money from the government and other third parties who would try to seize that money. Bitcoin also matters in the sense that it's similar to gold, right? In the sense that it's scarce, it's rare, right? Because as opposed to fiat currencies like the dollar and all these other paper currencies that are no longer tied to the gold standard, they lose value by the minute, by the day, right? Every time you print out more fiat currency, more paper money to boost the economy, right? It's losing value because it's basically almost infinite, right? With Bitcoin, it's similar to gold in the sense that there are only 21 million Bitcoins out there that can ever be mined. As a result, it's scarce, giving it value. Another selling point for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other cryptocurrencies is that they're global and borderless with low transaction fees, meaning that me right here in America, I can send money to anybody around the world very, very quickly, right? Faster than sending money with other platforms like Western Union. On top of that, they have lower transaction fees. So for example, Bitcoin could be used as a replacement for Western Union and sending money abroad to help out family members or other friends. Because the transaction fees are very, very low and money can be very instant. Because right now with the current banking system, it's very hard to send, like, for example, $1 million out there across the world. It's actually easier, a lot easier to get on a plane with a suitcase of money and transfer that money. Right? Because money usually takes about 3 to 5 business days, sometimes even longer, depending where you are. Right? With Bitcoin, it can take anywhere from 10 minutes to half an hour. Right? So it's very, very fast to send large amounts of money and very, very low transaction fees. Right? Because when I send money to somebody via Bitcoin, there actually is no transaction fee. There's only a transaction fee when you try to take the money out, and that fee is very low. And one of the main ways that makes Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and Ethereum and all such matter is they help store value. So earlier I mentioned how in Cyprus, people who were afraid of the government seizing their assets were able to store the value of their money in Bitcoin, right? So for example, the same thing is happening in China right now as we speak, right? Because China is a communist country. And Chinese are in droves, in terms of the rich Chinese, they're sending the money to Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all these other cryptocurrencies as a way to store the value from either unstable currencies or from the government. Right? So for example, if you have a currency kind of like down in South America and Argentina, right? They're using Bitcoin to store the value because their currency fluctuates up and down to a point that they have no idea where the currency stands at any given point in time because it's so volatile. So they use Bitcoin as a way to store the value. All right, so how can Bitcoin and all these other cryptocurrencies make you a millionaire, right? First thing I'll say is I'm definitely not a financial advisor. This is infotainment, right? But I myself am actually invested in all these cryptocurrencies, right? Bitcoin, Ethereum, and some more altcoins. But in general, right? So back in 2011, if you invested $100 in Bitcoin, at this current point in time in 2017, your $100 investment would be valued at almost $400,000. Just think about that for a second. $100 to 400 grand in basically 6 years. Like, imagine if you put a lot more into it, right? Because me right now, I have over 10 grand in it, right? So I'm definitely playing the long game. I'm definitely going for that home run, right? I'm trying to swing outside the fence. So Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies is basically a way to speculate on the future in terms of the economy, the world economy, currencies, right? Because right now, if you get in early, you could possibly make a killing in it. And as I mentioned earlier, reason being is other currencies out there are losing value, which is why Bitcoin was the best performing currency of last year in 2016, right? So fiat currencies lost a lot of value in the sense that they're no longer backed by the gold standard, meaning that for every $1, for example, it's tied to one equal dollar worth of gold. Because back in the early, I think like in the 20th century, right? If you took your money, you could exchange that for gold in its equal form. But at this point in time, it's no longer backed by gold. As a result, it gave the government of America and other countries the ability to print as much money as they like, print as much paper money as they like, because it was no longer tied to gold. So they could just go out there and print $1 billion and not have $1 billion worth of gold to back that up. As a result, the value decreased. And so in general, cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum are getting lots and lots of attention because big companies now are paying attention to them. They're backing them. So for example, my employer, IBM, is going in on blockchain, the technology, the underlying technology that makes Bitcoin and all these cryptocurrencies possible. They started a Hyperledger Foundation, which is basically a blockchain foundation. Then recently this year, JP Morgan and Microsoft founded their own Ethereum Foundation. That's why Ethereum blew up in the last 3 months or so and went from $10 to $40 because big companies are paying attention and giving this that stamp of approval. Right? So anybody out there who's kind of hesitant to take a look at these cryptocurrencies or check them out, if Microsoft, IBM, JP Morgan are willing to take a gamble on these currencies, maybe you should too as well. Right? Maybe you should also take a chance, a gamble, a flyer on them, because this could be your $1 million move. Another point I'll make is Bitcoin could be a possible replacement for gold. Yeah, gold, right? Because recently Bitcoin is now worth, one Bitcoin is worth more than 1 ounce of gold. 1 ounce of gold is worth less than 1 Bitcoin. So Bitcoin could be a possible replacement to store value as opposed to storing it in gold. So if you have a bunch of money, right, and you want to store it in something else besides gold, silver, you can store it in Bitcoin. Which is what the Chinese are doing, and other people in unstable economies with unstable currencies, they're using these cryptocurrencies as ways to store value. All right, so you're saying, hey Ian, you got me hyped, super hyped. I'm definitely down to invest some money on cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Ethereum, what have you. Where do I start? How do I start? So the first step to start, especially if you're a beginner, is a site called Coinbase. This makes it very, very easy for anybody out there to buy and sell cryptocurrencies. This is meant for beginners, right? So if you go to coinbase.com and create an account, you can verify your account, tie it up, link it up to your bank account, and buy money and buy basically Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin. Those are the 3 currencies they have on there, right? The 3 cryptocurrencies they have. You can purchase them either with your debit card and tied to your bank account, or a credit card even, right? But one thing about Coinbase though is it has higher transaction fees than normal Bitcoin or cryptocurrency sites because it's meant for newbies. But with that being said though, it's very, very user friendly. It's how I began my journey in cryptocurrencies, and it's a great place to start. Now, one thing to note is if you actually go on my website and sign up using my link, right? You and I will both get $10 worth of Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies in terms of Bitcoin, Litecoin, what have you, to invest if you invest $100, right? So let me say that again. So if you want to start and you want to put $100 into it, Coinbase, as a way to kind of entice you to kind of learn the system and get more involved, they'll give you $10 as well. But to do that, you have to sign up using my affiliate link, right? So if you sign up using my link, my affiliate link, you and I both get $10. What a deal, right? All right, so let's say you're only a beginner, maybe you've done investing before, and you don't want something that's super easy. Maybe you want to day trade, for example, right? 2 good platforms for day trading are GDAX, which is an exchange owned by Coinbase. It's kind of for more advanced people, and also Gemini. These 2 are basically exchanges that let you day trade cryptocurrencies. And mainly just the popular ones like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin. Right? So if you want to day trade, you can use those platforms. They're better than Coinbase in the sense that you have a lot more control. You can do things such as stop limit orders. They also have fewer transaction fees, much, much lower transaction fees, right? But it's kind of more complex, right? You have to have some kind of experience investing. So I would recommend using something like Coinbase to start. Use that as training wheels. Then go on GDAX or Gemini and use that as a way to kind of, once you've mastered or gotten the handle on things, to start doing a lot more complicated things, more complex things. Now, so we've talked about Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the main 2 currencies out there. the two main cryptocurrencies, but there are over 100 cryptocurrencies out there, over 100, and new currencies are coming up every single day. And actually, I think it's a lot more profitable to find these smaller currencies because they have a lot more growth potential. Because Bitcoin has gone from being worth pennies to being worth $1,200. So in terms of growth potential, it could go to $2,000, it could go to $10,000, even $5,000, but it's going to get there a lot slower than these currencies right now that are in the pennies on the dollar, right? So think of altcoins, alternative coins, as similar to trading penny stocks, right? So for those who have done investing before, penny stocks are basically stocks worth under a dollar or so, right? Almost pennies that you can buy very, very cheap. And if they go up, they can double just like that. Right? So for example, recently, I doubled my money with Ripple, which is a cryptocurrency as well, but this is used more for banking, right? Because it was worth it was worth in the pennies on the dollar, right? And when they go up 2 pennies, maybe if it's 50 cents, it goes to $1, you can double your money like that, right? So in general, if you want to trade altcoins, the exchange I use is called Poloniex. Don't know how to say it, don't know how to pronounce it. I just call it Polo for short, right? But if you go to Poloniex, Polo, right? They have tons and tons of cryptocurrencies out there, right? Tons of them, right? From Stratus to Ripple to Decred, right? Almost not every currency, but the popular ones out there that you want to invest in and leverage and make profit on are available on Polo, right? As opposed to going to Coinbase, GDAX, and Gemini, because they only cater to the top 3 currencies, top 3 cryptocurrencies. Everything else, the altcoins, I would go to Polo and find them there, right? But one thing to notice, Polo won't let you buy anything with fiat money, right? So you can't buy with dollars. It's only an exchange. You can only exchange money. And their standard universal currency is Bitcoin. So what I do is I buy my money, I get my bank account and buy Bitcoin or Ethereum, but generally Bitcoin because it's a lot easier to work with. I buy Bitcoin on GDAX, then I transfer that to my Bitcoin wallet on Polo, and I use that to trade and make day trades and moving in and out of different currencies. Then once you're done, you cash out from that currency, converting back to Bitcoin. Then from Bitcoin, you send that Bitcoin back to GDAX and you cash out, right? So it's kind of complex. It's kind of a roundabout way of doing things. It definitely adds a barrier of entry, but that barrier of entry makes it a lot profitable to make money because not everybody's making money with it, right? But sometimes you don't even have to cash out, right? So for example, recently I sold a portion of my investment to transfer that money to an offshore bookie so I could gamble on March Madness with Bitcoin, right? And the casino, the online bookie accepts Bitcoin, which was pretty cool, right? Because it was a lot faster to send my Bitcoin from Polo or GDAX as opposed to calling them or tying my credit card to that, right? It kind of makes it fluid. And it's kind of anonymous. I say that because all these exchanges nowadays force you to verify your account, your information in terms of your bank account, your ID, where you live, all that, right? So it's not truly anonymous. But if you're dealing with just anybody out there, peer-to-peer, you can be anonymous because that's what cryptocurrencies let you achieve. All right, so I gave you guys a lot of game. If you want to do any further study or research on cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and altcoins, a good place to start that I recommend is to check out a book called Digital Gold. This is one of the best books I've read on Bitcoin, and it basically walks you through the starting of Bitcoin from the founder, right, in Japan, all the way through the history of the major key players in the history of Bitcoin and how it grew. And also it shares a story and talks about how people became millionaires with Bitcoin, right? So it's a very, very great story. Check out the book, Digital Gold. I have the link available on my website, and I also put it in the video as well. All right, I've given you guys a lot of game. A ton of game, right? And you guys, I showed you how it's possible to go out there and possibly become a millionaire, right? Just to kind of be candid with you guys, I myself right now have about $10,500 invested in cryptocurrencies, right? And I began investing around end of November, early December or so. And I didn't start early. I didn't just go out there and put in 10 grand, right? I began small. So I first began things off with $100 in Bitcoin and $100 in Ethereum. So I took a flyer on it. I was like, here, you know what? Let me just throw $200 at it and see what happens. And I noticed, hey, I'm up about 25% in a month. Not bad, right? So I put about $250 more each in both Ethereum and Bitcoin again to see how things were going. Then I noticed, I was like, hey, you know what? I just doubled my money because Ethereum went from $10 to $20 in about 2 months. I'm like, not bad, right? Then once I saw Ethereum was taking off, I came back, put in $2,500 in Ethereum and $2,500 in Bitcoin. And Ethereum doubled in about a month and a half. My $2,500 went from being worth $2,500 to over $5 grand, to a point I actually sold that off at about $5,500. So I more than doubled my money in about a month and a half. Then from there, after I kind of learned the ropes, I then moved my money from Gadax to Polo, because with Polo I could do a lot more day trading, a lot more trading with altcoins, right? So right now my portfolio, because I mean I don't want to seem like I'm making money like that, right? Because I ain't got it like that, but the potential is there, right? Because my initial investment of $10,500 is now worth about $13,000, give or take, right? Some profits, some losses, right? But that's been in about 3 months or so it's not bad, right? But right now, the last couple months, growth has slowed down, mainly being because Bitcoin is going through a major scalability issue, right? I don't know if you guys have heard about this, right? You can do your own research on this. It's too in-depth for this video, because this is meant for beginners. But Bitcoin is thinking about doing a split, right? Basically splitting the currency and doing a hard fork, right? Something called SegWit and Bitcoin Unlimited, right? So once this whole debate has been resolved, then Bitcoin, I think, is going to take off and continue to take off. Because right now it's been kind of stagnant, right? So with that being said, though, I've given you guys a lot of game. Go out there and check it out. Let me know what you guys think. I'll be dropping an in-depth blog post on my website explaining a lot more about how to possibly become a millionaire with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general. With that being said, though, I am definitely not a financial advisor, right? This is not financial advice. This is infotainment. Invest at your own risk, at your own peril. But with that being said, though, let's get this money. Peace.
All right, that's a wrap. Thanks for checking out the show. Make sure to give it a like, subscribe, drop a comment and review. Check out my website where I drop game every single week. Check me out on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat. Let's go out there, make this money. Hustle to greatness.